You getting the lighter? It's okay.
All good. Hey everyone, it's Peter Kerr from Rock Daydream Nation and a special presentation with Grant Arthur from Grant's Rock Warehouse. And we have got a very special guest. We've got Prescott Niles, bass player from the Knack. Welcome, Prescott. How are you, mate?
Thank you. And I have an affinity with Australia, and we'll get into some stories later. And I was lucky enough to be there at the right time when we were allegedly number one.
Absolutely.
You were number one everywhere.
Yeah.
Well, almost. I don't know if we did too well in Iran, but we did pretty well.
Absolutely. And yeah, we're also going to have a little bit of a chat about this one, the Knack, live in the House of the Blues. This came out in Record Store Day about 3-4 weeks ago. Do yourself a favor. It's been on my turntable for the last couple of weeks, really enjoying it, and a lot of fun. And we'll talk with Prescott more about that.
I'll give you my critique and then we can get yours. But it's a great, I'm so grateful. I had no idea it existed till my friend Tony, who had Smile Records, who released Normal is the Next Guy. And somebody had a copy, and it was like a blessing from nowhere, literally, and got me to meet renewed interest in us and me doing interviews with everybody. It's fantastic. So I'm grateful. Yeah,
absolutely. Well, I'll start things off. Grant and I are uber Knack fans, so thank you for being on this show.
Thanks so much.
Absolutely. So going back to 1978, you were the last to join the band. Can you tell me what your memory is of that first rehearsal? Did you think there's chemistry here? I'm onto something with this band, that very first rehearsal?
Well, why it was so special to me, because I had played with Bruce Gary previously. We kept missing each other, but to play with him was really, apart from Doug and Burton, who obviously extremely talented, playing with Bruce was like a big thing for me. I played with very good drummers, but Bruce was a phenomenal. I don't know if you know any of the story, but I lived in England from 73 to 75. I was playing with American guitarists, and we auditioned drummers in LA. We came back, and Bruce was somebody we wanted to bring over, but unfortunately he went to England but played with somebody else. Okay, which is probably interesting. Then he came back when my group broke up in England. Bruce got me a ticket back to LA to play with the group he was playing with. I was going to tour with Mayall. They broke up, and then Bruce went back to England to play with Mick Taylor, Jack Bruce, and his new group. So I kept missing playing with Bruce until he called me that day, and I guess it was April. No, was it? Yeah, probably April in 78, and told me about Doug and Burton. He needed somebody who kind of looked like McCartney and could play like Entwistle, and I raised my hand. And I went to rehearsal, and we did a showcase for Casablanca, which I guess we didn't impress him very much. It was, a lot of the songs came later, the songs people remember on the first album. But playing with Bruce, and after our first official show was at Whiskey in June 1st, 1978. And after playing that show, that's when you get the vibes and the energy. Nobody knew who we were, but we won them over. And that's when we shook hands next door and said, okay, let's do it. And that started it. And it was exciting because it was different for me, because everybody was on their game. And there was an energy and there was a camaraderie that I hadn't experienced. And I played with a lot of groups prior to this. This was like, I knew something was special. I had no idea what, but I knew.
Yeah.
So
how long was it? How long was it when Bruce gave you the call till when you played? Wasn't it like a week or something?
Well, Bruce just told me about working with Doug and Burton, because they had cut some demos. They never played live, and they were actually turned down by Capitol. Doug had Good Girls Don't on the demos that was given to Capitol 2 years prior, and I guess the demos really were not convincing enough. And Bruce called me. I guess I met Doug, went to his house. He was kind of weird because I had to take my shoes off because he had a white carpet. Out to me, it was bizarre. I grew up in Brooklyn. That shit didn't happen,
Yeah.
And Doug was from Detroit, but no, but he was cool. And we everybody was pretty intellectually as well as musically on target. But I think it only took a week for me I met them, and then we had a rehearsal set up to do this showcase. And so right away I was on it, and then June 1st wasn't far away.
Yeah.
And for that Whiskey gig, and there's a black and white of us on YouTube. doing this song called Art War, which is came on our third album. It's a real punk thing. And Doug's doing what Johnny Linden, he's doing the punk thing,
Yeah.
And
I always wondered why it took so long for Art War to come out, because that was all part of those songs that you had on the first album, right?
Exactly. No, it wasn't on the. It was on our
Well,
first
no,
show.
but I mean, all those songs were written. I mean, Art War and Big Cow.
Well, actually, if I think about it, it didn't fit the first album. Second album, it didn't fit either. I think it took Jack to record it the right way. I think as well. And yeah, we could have recorded it before, but because that album was so eclectic, it had a lot of different styles, I think it stood out. It's one of my favorite songs that Doug and Burton had composed, the lyric, and it's just a punk, man. We're just driving it, So that's a great song. And again, we did that live.
Absolutely. So you're generating a lot of heat. You're a big draw card on Sunset Strip.
It took a while. It didn't have,
it was a bit of a slow burn, but you were starting to get a bit of an audience. And I read stories that the crowds were just, lining up and going around the corner. And you had
not
a lot
right,
of
not right away. Not right away. We were putting up posters on poles, did the old-fashioned thing. And it didn't happen overnight. I mean, we played a bunch of shows. The Troubadour was a venue that kind of started the rock thing. And then the Starvey was a great club. But as we started to play, there was an energy because we were a great live band. And I think that in itself generated interest, and people, Sharona wasn't in the set. A lot of songs from the first album weren't even in the set. They came later. But I think we're exciting live band. And I think because we were a so-called new wave, which is just another word for rock, or new pop rock, I think that's what got people kind of interested, because we were different than maybe the scene that was going on in LA,
Yeah. When you were doing those shows and you started to get big crowds, did you have it in your mind that I think we're going to make it? Were you confident,
I did.
Was there something in your head that said, oh, I think this is really going to work?
Well, no, yes and no. I knew that this never happened quite the way it did from the ground up, literally, and us earning it. And sure, people got interested and the new songs were exciting. And of course, when we started to have certain people, I want to call them celebrities, because back then they weren't. But, Eddie Money jammed with us. We did 2 Tickets to Paradise, which is, just, hey, Eddie, you're part of the scene. And then we had Tom Petty come up and we did Mona Not Fade Away. So in other words, if we weren't good or we weren't inviting, they wouldn't have done it. Nobody paid them. It didn't advance their careers, but they did it because they wanted to. And I think Bruce Gary knew somebody about Bruce Springsteen. Not only did he give us a song to record, but he came up in the Troubadour and did those songs with us, Mona Not Fade Away, which was huge. And then Stills down with us, and he wanted to produce us, but he was kind of out of his mind, played behind his head. But I was at his house the day after, and it's Steve Stills, man. It's like, I love, one of my heroes of guitar. And then Ray Manzarek later on, we did a few Doors songs.
Yeah, I think that's on this one, the Capitol.
Yeah, which is terrific. So anyway, I think that added to our credibility, which I don't think any other band had. Now, I loved it because we're good. People wanted to play with us. But the magic, you asked the question, when did I know we could be something? Was Mike Chapman, your Aussie friend.
Yeah.
When I didn't know his history, even though I lived in England, I knew all the songs that were hits back, 70, all the glam bands, and he wrote everything with Nicky Chin, man. I mean, he was a legend, really.
Yeah.
All that sweet stuff. All that
absolutely.
Susie Quattro. Yeah.
And his work with Blondie, though.
Slade, too. Oh, I love him. And we were in the studio simultaneously with Blondie, but I didn't know all of that. I just know that Mike apparently was interested, but he had to kind of call Kaplan and go, hey, look, I haven't got a call, but I dig the guys. I want to come down and see him and meet him. And he came down to our show and said, I want to do you guys. I want to record you just as well you played your show. And which was pretty damn good coming from Mike. Then I read about Mike and I was even more impressed. But he told us before we even recorded that Sharona was a hit.
Right.
I wrote it in my diary. He said it's #1. I go, how do you know?
Well, that's a segue to one of my questions.
When
when you did the album, and My Sharona. Did anyone in that band think this is going to be a huge hit?
No, Capitol didn't even know. And I'll get into that too. No, again, Mike came to our shows and he said, look, I want to take you guys in the studio and record you from, see, good producers make a decision whether they want to produce or let what happens. And Mike did put his touches on it, the sound he gets, and created the right atmosphere. But Mike was terrific in letting us be us. And what I really grateful about is Mike, we didn't do it in a studio in LA. He liked working in Glendale, which is outside of LA. And that's where Blondie was recording as well, their second album. So that was a cool thing. But Mike just said, look, I just want to get the energy and the excitement you do live. And we go, okay, so we started recording and we do, again, this is my quote, we're not one hit wonders, we're one take wonders. Take, T-A-K.
Yeah, I hear you only did maximum of 2 takes per
Yeah,
track.
I think Sharona might have just been the run through, by the way.
Wow.
But you guys were very well rehearsed. So,
Played,
how many gigs had you probably played before you went to the?
We played a lot of
session?
gigs, but Bruce was a session drummer. Burden was fucking brilliant. Doug was a great singer. He knew what he was doing. And, I wasn't bad either. So we took pride in the fact that, we didn't have to do 20 takes. We just went in there and Sharona, like the first day we did like 3 or 4 demo, just basic tracks in one shot. And then Sharona was a run through pretty much. And we said, okay, Mike, can we do it for real? He goes, I got it. Yeah, he was smart because he didn't say anything. He didn't want us to be self-conscious.
Yeah, I think it's amazing that you were able to do it 2 takes because I've exchanged messages. Yeah, I've exchanged messages with Burton, and we always one of the questions I asked Burton was that Bruce Gary was a force of nature. How did you keep him under control? Because he had that sort of Keith Moon feel about it, and he said that you guys sometimes had to rein him in and have strict guidelines just to get him in the parameters.
Well,
and to do 2 takes with him not going wild, that's just phenomenal.
Well, he could be Keith Moon. He could try to be Buddy Rich. He can also be Ringo and Charlie Watts. Bruce could be directed, is what I'm saying. When we rehearse, maybe like me, I could do crazy riffs and stuff, but you kind of play to suit the song. And Bruce, because he was, let's say, well, Bruce is not a maniac. I mean, he's not going to go in there and just play and go, screw you. Even the Who, I'm a big Who fan. Listen to Who's Next. That's very structured. All the fills, all the parts. Live, we played it pretty much like the record with some jamming as well. But if the rhythm section was so tight, and again, as an ensemble, we were so tight. But Bruce was not, Bruce may have done over or under. Doug would sometimes go, hey man, fill this, do fill like A Number Your Name. If you listen to the bridge, it's got all those incredible tom fills in there, and then we might go, okay, let's hold back on the versatile. And Good Girls Don't's a crazy song to play in drums. A lot of people think it's easy. It's not. He's doing a hell of a lot of fills. So in a way, and Selfish, look at that groove in Selfish. Talk about simplicity, So yes, he was a wild man, I think more psychologically, but he was great and he was loyal. And we knew he had something special. Mike loved what Bruce can do, and the way Bruce tuned his drums as well sounded awful good. And Burton, of course, was, to me, I always say he's unsung as a great rock pop guitarist. I mean, let alone, see, the problem is when Sharona was cut, by the way, the album was released before the single. Capitol didn't know what single to release, believe it or not. And the album came out and then radio immediately became the most requested song. And then the album was getting Sharona playing all the time. Capitol had a rush release a single, and that's when they did the edited version. So unfortunately, like when we did Countdown, we had the edited version, and FM radio played the full version. But that solo, man, I mean, Burton was playing that live, We only did a couple overdubs in Sharona, but that's how good he was. And Doug was a great front man. So in a way, we all matured to be that good at the right time. We kind of peaked all together, I think. And I think that's another thing I think is we did have some maturity, and maybe it helped us get through that first year.
I do want to say that first Knack album, and I'm even going to say the second album, is a guitar tour de force.
Yep.
Your bass playing and your bass sound, I must say, is absolutely killer. I'm assuming I'm assuming you were playing the Guild on that record. I'm not sure 100%.
Yeah, I just had gotten that Guild bass. It was probably hot. A club. I played this club before the Knack, where the guy. It was a club, downtown LA, and the club owner, after my first set, it was some other band, and took me in his dressing room, and he goes, "Hey man, I got it. You see, you bass player right here, man. I'm gonna show you my bass." And he goes, "What is this?" He goes, "You want to buy it?" I go, "Yeah, how much?" And he said $100, and I go, "Sure." That's pretty cheap. I go, is it hot? And that's when he like threatened me, kill me if I said any more. So I gave him the 100, which is all I made that night. And I had that bass. I had my P bass and a Gibson Thunderbird. I never really used that Guild. It sounded great if I do Cream songs, because I love jamming with Bruce on Cream songs. When we started playing live, I was using a Marshall cabinet, 412, and a Marshall head, which is not usual for bass players. But the Knack, everything I was playing was so eighth notes. So I needed that punch, and that Guild bass, I started using it, and Chapman loved it as well. That's what gave it a distinctive sound. P bass would have been fine too, but it was too big. And that Guild bass was punchy, and that's what you're hearing. And Sharon and Rough Frustrated is a great song too. That should have been a follow-up single.
Yeah.
And it's really punchy. So thanks for mentioning that.
No,
and I
but
did play Rickenbacker too.
Oh yeah, I've seen that
on that album too. On I think Maybe Tonight, and well, that's what the little girls do. I used the Hofner because Doug insisted.
Oh, you did? Oh,
yeah.
I think Doug had a Hofner, didn't he?
Well, I used his, yeah.
Yeah.
And
but
I
I
think,
just wanted. Sorry.
No, it's okay, man. I think I used the Rick on Otara possibly, or
I was
maybe Punch.
I was going to say about the Rickenbacker. Yeah.
Yeah, and maybe on one other song, but whatever fit the song. But the Guild was the primarily. Even when I do Sharon now, when we re-recorded it, the Guild is still the sound.
Yeah,
that punchiness, whatever it is.
But the guitar sounds on that record are absolutely wonderful.
Absolutely.
Doug playing through the Super Beetle, he has to have one of the best. I'm assuming he played the Strat on that. Has one of the best Strat sounds.
I agree. I absolutely agree.
And Burton, what else can we say? I mean, that album is magical, and I don't know if it was had a lot to do with Mike Chapman, or I'm assuming this is just your stage setup.
Well, it was the stage, and Burton had his parts, and Mike. Again, I always believed, and again, I trusted Mike. Mike had a glorious resume and history, and he knows. I mean, I didn't know anything's going to be a hit. I didn't know what the right sounds were. He mixed it Mike's way, and it was fresh. And he has a lot to do. We could have gone with other people. Jimmy Iovine was available, might have been interested, but Mike, as I found out, knows his stuff, and he picked Sharon as a single.
Absolutely. And I've got a question about that. So, My Sharon has been the signature song for you guys forever. Do you think, in retrospect, that if they there's so many good songs on Get the Knack, there's so many great songs. Do you think if maybe they picked another song as a teaser to what your other material was, like Let Me Out's a great song, Good Girls Don't. Do you think if they picked another song and then did a follow-up with My Sharona, the album may have lasted longer in regards to sales? It might have changed the trajectory of the Knack somewhat instead of being a one-hit wonder?
No, that was because we blew it. It had nothing to do with anybody. See, most record companies, in other words, producers, let's say you do an album, most record companies will put out a first single just to get people interested. And then they'll save the big hit for second. That's a formula a lot of people use. And it didn't happen that way because we didn't put out a single. Radio picked it and America picked it. So that backwards thing was to our advantage because not only did people heard the album, not just the single. So in a way that having it go backwards worked to our success because we're turning off the album and the single took a couple of weeks to come out anyway. So the album went number one before the single and then the single became number one. So to me, that was the opposite formula that most record companies do. You know, they, first of all, Capitol is, I heard something yesterday, the other day, that Capitol supposedly gave us the most advance of any band in history. No, they gave us the no advance. They gave us $100,000. When I did the Velvet Turner album in, you know, in 1970, we got 100,000. You know, we were offered $1 million from Polygram. We got nothing from Capitol because we didn't want a lot of money up front, because then you owe a lot of money.
Yep.
Isn't that logical? You know?
Yes.
But
Yep.
we did it. We did the album for like under 20,000.
Yep.
And, and that means we don't owe Capitol a lot of money. I mean, we didn't know it would be that quick, but certainly it helped us, you know. But yeah, if no, and if a matter of fact, Good Girls Don't came after, and we could have come with Frustrated as single. I don't think people would have compared it to Sharona because they weren't in competition. The second album became the competitive thing against the first album that everybody judged us, and that had a lot to do with putting out a second album much too soon. So we could have gotten, to answer your question, that wouldn't have been an issue at all, because nobody would have compared anything to Sharona because there was nothing to compare but the first album.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
So that's why we could have rolled on some singles that people maybe didn't know on the album. And like Frustrated is a cool single, maybe Selfish, you know, cleaned up the lyric. So anyway, that's kind of answers your question.
So many good songs on that album. So many good songs.
And I was proud of that. And I'm glad people did hear the album before just buying the single and not even knowing who the hell we are. So and again, Mike, you know, was cool. And, you know, whenever I talked to him back then, you know, I knew he just was very gregarious and lighthearted. And he talked truth. And I looked at his resume, I'm going, okay, I'll believe him. And he was right. Who knew? Thank you, Mike.
Yeah.
And by the way, there's a documentary on Mike Chapman. I did an interview 2 years ago before the pandemic, and I don't know if it's out yet. You can check it. It's I forget the name of it. It's all about Mike.
Yeah,
and,
absolutely.
It was great. It was a real joy being interviewed as well. All the artists he worked with. So just saying, you know.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm just curious, but do you think? I mean, you went in 8 months after the first album was released.
Yeah,
I think that's about right. Do you think you wish you would have waited? I mean,
I think this is a really good album.
Well, I'm not going to argue with you. It would be disrespectful, would I?
Yeah. I mean, I don't know if it was that whole Nuke the Knack thing that was happening.
No, that was fun. The guy just wanted to make money. I have pictures of myself, Doug, and Bruce at a swap meet, Capitol swap meet. We brought stuff from him, you know. The bumper sticker was "Honk if you slept with Sharona," you know. So it was okay. I mean, it wasn't an issue. It was an issue on other matters, really. But there was, again, now the fact that we did the album for so cheap, record companies were telling some of their artists to go, hey, the Knack did their album for like 17,000. Why don't you guys do it? So musicians started to hate us.
Right.
Because why should we not the Knack? We need to do this. We did interviews, but then we didn't do it. We did no American television. And, you know, want to talk about, we were a smart band. We should have done more than doing it everywhere in the world. And that screwed things up for us because they didn't get to know us. And then the critics kind of pigeonholed us into the Beatles and, you know, My Sharona. And, you know, I mean, I wanted to call the band the My Sharona Band after a while, really.
There was a bit of Knack mania, and I'm just like, this photo here, and you know, your face. I love your expression. Like, what's happening here?
I wasn't posed. That's real.
What were you think? Were you? Did you enjoy? Did you enjoy Knack mania? Because there's some people like you know, George Harrison said a lot. Like sometimes he just didn't enjoy the Beatlemania. Was that like some of you in the Knack? There were moments that you just didn't enjoy the Knack mania, or you did enjoy the Knack mania and you embraced it?
George was being sarcastic until a point when you can't leave your room. Yeah, up till then, I think he had a ball. We didn't have mania. You know, I mean, certain parts of the world, no, because we weren't. If you don't do television, you know, if America would have known us. And by the way, I don't know if you know this, we got 2 Grammy nominations, and Best Song and New Artist. So if we went to the Grammy Awards and played Sharona, I think that would have made us more of a staple in everybody's homes in America. And not only that, people would visually see us playing the song, which at that point, nobody saw us playing unless they came to see us. So I know this, I'm adding some negatives, and it's not even a negative, it's observations of why we contributed to the criticism that was part of our making as well, and our managers. Because if we had done that, I mean, obviously, we wouldn't be competing with ourselves. The song in that picture was what most people knew. And
Yeah.
there's much more than that. That should have been the album cover, by the way.
Yeah.
That would have been great.
Yeah.
And you know who's on the cover of that album?
Sharona.
Sharona.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Sharona. Now, why is Sharona on the cover?
Yep. And
Because of
I know.
Doug?
No, of course. It was Doug. I mean, I was dating girls from the Ford modeling agency. I wanted them on the cover too, but it's not about that. But that was Doug's idea, and I guess it symbolized something. But the title itself, and I'm not criticizing Doug, because I mean we're allowed to have different views, but I thought it was stupid because we were not a girls' band. We were a guys' band as much as we were a girls' band.
Yeah.
And we weren't a pop band. You know, we were like a rock pop band, I thought. But anyway, so that to me was not honest in terms of who we were. And Capitol didn't ask us to do a second album because they hadn't put out a third single yet.
Oh.
So, and we had done a US tour, and I was talking to Burton the other day, and I asked him to refresh my memory, make sure I was right. And basically Doug had been writing, and, you know, they had some songs, and Doug says, let's do another album. And we didn't have to do another album. And, you know, there you go. And Mike was going through some marital problems when we started the second album, and Mike wasn't Mike. And I think he signed off on things he wouldn't have signed off on, frankly, in my opinion. And I met him, I've met him over the years too and talked to him, but, you know, it's like something he should have had it. He couldn't maybe stop it, but I felt that we're going to be compared to the first album, and we damn well better have a single that's as good, if not better than Sharona, because otherwise we're going to be compared to Sharona, right?
Yeah.
So that was my feeling, even though we went into the studio gung ho. And you like the album, right?
Yeah,
I do.
Album.
Yeah.
Oh, I love it.
Would you have put out Baby Talks 30 as your single?
To me, it sounds like a sequel to My Sharona sonically. That's one thing I was going to sort of mention to you, was it's sort of a conscious decision to have it, because it seems to be in the similar sort of wheelhouse. I don't know. Was it?
No, it's in the key of G, number one.
Yeah.
That's the only one I know. And it's got a riff, but it doesn't have a chorus. It's got a bridge, which sounds more like Led Zeppelin to me.
Mhm.
And I think it's a good song, but golly, what are we comparing it? If Sharona wasn't a mega thing, then that's a good song. But I knew the critics, and I knew everybody wanted to hear Next Sharona. So that is a good song, but it doesn't have the hook. The drums don't have the hook, like it either. And again, my hang up, I don't mean to be negative on the Knack, but I got to be honest. I thought their lyric, if Steven Tyler sang it or somebody else, maybe it would have made sense. But it's pretty salacious lyric, and we're in a pop band.
Yeah.
And why are we being blatantly, whatever, sensuous or whatever you want to call it, when, I knew radio would have a problem playing it. So that's almost like really putting us like a burden on our back we didn't need. It's a good song, and the lyric is clever, but I don't think they played it in England, as far as I remember, because the lyric was a little too, but I'm sure Steven Tyler and Robert Plant sang it, nobody would give a damn, because they were known for being sexual and sensual. Doug's part of a pop band. We're not selling flesh.
Yeah. Do you think Doug's lyrics have been misunderstood? Because he copped a bit of flack in the day from,
I mean, Doug Burton was a collaborator as well. And a lot of the lyrics, Burton's a great wordsmith, and Doug's great too. And I think the lyrics are very clever on the first album as well. I mean, Sharona was what it was. It didn't cross the line. The second album, apart from Baby Talks Dirty, every song's got a really good lyric. Actually, there's no other dirty lyric, if you want to be honest. If you really think it, Feeling I Get's got a great lyric.
Yeah.
I Want You's romantic. I love Hold On Tight's a great rockabilly song. End of the Game is like a punks with the slide guitar thing, you know?
Yeah.
So, I mean, I go through the album and I think all the lyrics were pretty done. Mr. Handyman's kind of a comedic thing, you know, take my wife home, it's a joke. And I like Tell Me Your Mind, where Duck sounds like Elvis,
Yeah.
you know? So those are all, see what I mean? That album was less essentially lyrical as the first album, by the way. How about that?
Yeah, that's ironic, isn't it? So
But anything that you're
Yeah,
going to put
isn't that
out,
ironic?
yeah.
Isn't that wild? But you know, because you got Frustrated, you got Selfish, right?
Yeah.
I love Selfish. That's brilliant, by the way. The song, the performances, Doug's
Yeah.
vocal is brilliant. So I mean, I love that. But anyway, this was a very Baby Talks Dirty, very wholesome. Did you ever think of it that way? Probably not, but
No, no.
No, but-
it really is. I mean, just, you know.
But
I
it's
like
part
it.
of it's part of your stage show. You've been, you know, ever since, you know, in all of your performances and that I've seen on YouTube.
Well,
or
Rave Up,
whatnot,
Rave
yeah.
Up was a great rock
Yeah.
song we always close our sets with. Bruce was just like flying, man.
Yeah.
And that was a great ending song. So anyway, and then How Can Love Hurt So Much is a romantic
Yeah.
ballad. It's not
Yeah.
dirty.
Yeah.
So see what I'm saying? I mean, that's I never thought of the album that way, but the lyrics are pretty romantic, all of them. So I like it. Just
Yeah.
saying. And unfortunately, the album came out. We didn't do advanced promotion. We were in Japan touring again. We played Budokan and we're playing. I remember watching the Grammy results in like Sapporo, Japan, and going, why the hell weren't we there? We lost, of course. And then we weren't there to promote the album either, even though we had videos made. So in other words, that's why the album had no support. And it just came out and then we didn't even play anywhere. So that was strategically a bad idea, I think. And it wasn't Capitol's idea, by the way.
Yeah.
Does that make sense, sort of, how we we handicapped ourselves?
Yeah. To
We
me,
broke up,
it sounds like it's a harder hitting album. And the performances, you know, they're sort of very energetic.
Yeah.
Like I like Get the Knack, but you know, a lot of people put crap on this album, but I think it's even in some
I
of
don't
the
think it's
performances.
crap at all.
No, I think
I said
it's
I
harder
just told
hitting.
you,
Yeah.
The musical tracks are great, man. And by the way, Can't Put a Price on Love's a good R&B song.
Mm.
And a great lyric Doug and Burden wrote, by the way.
Yep.
It could have been mixed better, but you know, that's my Burden, you know, the solo, man, gotta put it up.
Yeah.
I'm just, you know how we are,
Yeah.
musicians.
yeah, it doesn't. I know that's very similar to the first album, but it doesn't sound like the first album. The
It
production,
wasn't, Mike.
something's
Mike wasn't
off on
right.
it, and I'm not trying to be critical, but it's not quite as, what do I want to say? The first album seemed to be ambient.
Well, the drum sound was different. It was something, some effect they were using, and it wasn't as spacious, the mix. It was, again, I think Mike was in a hurry to finish it. I don't blame him at
Yeah.
all. But I think it didn't have the expansiveness, and the vocals didn't have that crystal sound. It doesn't mean it's not good.
Yeah.
Everybody
No,
can
no.
criticize their own stuff, but again, I think it was too soon. But we actually, when we did the third album, a couple of songs from there could have been on the second album. I just wait and see, but that was saved for the third album, actually.
Yeah.
Why
I know
didn't
there's
you
a little.
guys-
Sorry.
I'm sorry.
No, whatever. I was just curious. I know you went with Jack Douglas on Round Trip. I'm just curious why you didn't use Mike Chapman, or what's the
Well,
story?
that's easy to answer, but you got a question first before we want to get into the third album, or should I?
Oh, just one thing.
Oh no,
On-
go ahead.
Yeah, on this one, it said Prescott stole my money
Yeah.
on the commando. Is there a little in joke from Mike Chapman?
Well,
when
we
he's
used to watch football games, so we bet on the games.
Oh, okay.
No, Mike was cool. It was great hanging out with him. And Doug had Sharon. And the little difference was between the first and second album, maybe like John and Yoko. Sharon was there a lot.
Hmm.
And I thought it was ironic when Doug's singing How Can Love's Hurt So Much when she's there. It was kind of, it's like, well, it's a little different maybe now, but it was a little different. I felt that, yeah, we were still all together, but then again, there was a fifth member for a moment. Not really, she was wonderful, but you know what I mean? It had a little distance because we were the same guys. We didn't have our love interest with us. So that put and we did break up after, well, we had other things going on. Bruce quit because there was some issues we had, and Capitol didn't know what to do. And Doug was kind of like, feeling his own juices, maybe independence. So there was a bit of hostility, and we basically were going to put our own band together. Me, Bruce Burton, and I was going to put our own band together. And there's a picture of us with, we got a vocalist who's really an actor, Stephen Bauer. You know, you probably know from Scarface.
Yes.
And a lot of other movies.
Thief of
So
Hearts.
somebody introduced us. I don't know how it happened, but we started rehearsing, and Steve wasn't a great singer, but he looked great, you know. And we did a few gigs. We did a demo tape, and Virgin was interested, but our manager got arrested, you know, so it didn't help. And all while I was going on, I think this was all before the third album. And and then we were going to have a party to celebrate getting away from Doug. The next week we had a party to celebrate firing our manager, who really fucked us over, sort of, and made a lot of. And then when Lennon passed away, I knew that we had to get back together. I mean, Doug, you know, John Lennon was his guy, you know, I mean, we all felt terrible. And I told Burton, I'm gonna go talk to Doug. I talked to him, and we all agreed that it's not over yet. You know what I mean? Because, I mean, how can this happen anyway? You know, assassinated John Lennon, it was like, whoa, you know, shock city. And we thought of producers, and I guess maybe because sure, you know, Jack was brilliant anyway as a producer, Aerosmith and Cheap Trick, you know. But I think because of the Lennon connection, we got in touch with him, and he actually agreed to do it. And that was pretty amazing because he wasn't working with anybody. I think Graham Chapman out of New York or something, but he agreed to do it. So we were all happy and excited, and we had a lot of new material. And as you know, the album had, the styles we played were just who we were. The songs that were written was, you know, Burton and I loved Earth, Wind and Fire. We go to concerts together in Africa. You know, I could play funk. How happy was I to be playing? And Bruce's drumming is like Billy Cobham. And again, you know, that's only that song. Little Cal's brilliant. And I think the playing on that album showed our versatility and our great musicianship. And I'm proud of that. And the songwriting was brilliant too. All the songs worked, and Jack was very supportive and really had no issues about any of it. It's a great album cover too.
Yeah.
And Randy St. Nicholas was a dear friend of mine. She was an artist, but she shot the first album cover, and she shot that album cover as well.
Yep.
And she's gone on to be quite a successful photographer, Randy St. Nicholas. She's done 2 Prince books, by the way, so she's pretty darn good. But anyway, so as we went in there, I mean, it was just so wonderful working with Jack, and he got the best performances, and Jack liked us and we liked him. So it was pretty darn, and he still had a lot of issues. He was disappearing to have talks with New York, with Yoko, and a lot of legal things. So he was a bit distracted, but we were quick. And he liked that we didn't do a lot of takes again. The songs were more difficult, but still we nailed them. And I think that's some of the best songwriting. I think Another Lousy Day in Paradise would have been a great single. That's a great lyric, and it's a great band performance. And we had some guest people in the studio, Mark Volman and Harry Kalin, from Flo and Eddie. They did some backing vocals. Bill Hudson, who became a friend of mine later on, did some backing vocals. And I think the arrangements and the sounds were fantastic. And can I say, do I sound enthusiastic talking about it?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
And I love Radiating Love as an opening track. I think that should be in a movie.
Yeah.
And
it must be gratifying that this album didn't do so well in the day, but it's getting a bit of a cold audience that say it's like it's sort of like a forgotten great album. I sure
hope so. I mean, I play it for musicians that I know, and I ask, who is it? They go, I don't know. I play Africa, for instance, or Little Cows. They go, no, I don't know. They Steely Dan. No. I tell them that, they don't believe it.
Yep.
Because we played everything ourselves, and the solo in Africa, Burton again, it's like, whoa. Yeah. And I love Just Wait and See. Again, was an earlier track we did, and that's a great 12-string solo. And of course, Art War's on it, and I love Boys Go Crazy, which would have been it's a great follow-up to Good Girls Don't. And I love Soul Kissin'. It's almost like Strange Brew. It's got that swampy vibe to it. And I mean, I like it. I listen to it. I play along with all the Knack stuff, because I got to keep in shape anyway. And and I like, but I think it's wonderful. And Capitol, for some reason, it's not drugs, it's a psychosis probably. They picked a song Burton wrote called "Pay the Devil," which is a country song, as a single. Now I'm not sure what anybody was on, but if you're putting the Knack's future on the next single, either we have the single or not, and we wait a month and we record another song. But to make a country, and Burton wrote that song pretty much, and he didn't even want. He had a meeting with Kaplan and said it shouldn't be a single. It's and that Burton's, and then the lyric too is too weird because who's paying the devil? I guess we are, and the critics even commented on it. So and Capitol, I think they could have picked a better single. And maybe they wanted to get rid of us. I don't know, but that album got a lot of critical reviews, by the way. And we did a great tour. There's some live stuff people put up in YouTube of the radio show we did in '81, the best we ever played, by the way. So you can tell I'm really proud of it, and I really expected more than happened to it. I used to brag about working with Jack, and the fact that the drum sounds and the bass and the vocals were so recorded so well. So, you learn, I guess, but I'm still selling it all these years later.
It's a great production. And like Peter said, I think after all this time has passed by, I think people are reevaluating this record and are looking at this as probably your crowning achievement. I mean, I like Zoom a lot. In the first.
Can I ask you about Serious Fun, or should we go on? Should we back?
I'd love to talk about Serious Fun if you want. It's up to you.
I listened to it today. I play along with it. I play along with everybody. That's how I keep my chops. I play along with Earth, Wind and Fire. I play along with the Beatles. I play along with the Stones. The Knack, Earth, Wind and Fire. I mean, that's a great cover, by the way. And I love that song, Serious Fun. So we had been broken up for a while, and Don was a friend of Doug's, and we had been writing new songs, and Don said he wanted to produce us. And we went into Gold Star, which is a famous studio in Hollywood. And Billy Ward was our new drummer, and Billy came from, was a New York session drummer, brilliant drummer. And I listened to that today just for the hell of it, didn't even know about talking about it. But man, those drum tracks are killer. And I think the songwriting was it was different style, but it was really good. And I think Serious Fun is a brilliant song lyrically too. And so I think that album was undervalued. The record company actually went bankrupt, Charisma. So we had Rocket of Love, which became a FM hit, top 10, whatever the hell it was, But we didn't have a crossover song. We were going to do the ballad One Day at a Time, but unfortunately the record company couldn't. But I think that's a very interesting album. Even we were doing different styles, but there's some really good choruses. And I think the musicianship, again, with Billy and myself as a rhythm section, is pretty darn good. And I Want to Love, I think, is a really cool song too.
Yeah. Over time, there's been, changes and shifts of music, through the 80s, 90s, 2000. And just as an example, in the early part of 2000s, there was a garage rock revival.
Yeah.
You had Jet, White Stripes, The Hives, all those sort of bands. Did you listen to these bands and think, the Knack, there's a lineage there. There's a lot of, that they could have easily fit into that scene.
Well, we're all connected anyway. Yeah. I mean, there's stylistic fashion differences or approach differences, but I mean, we're all pretty much connected in that level. It starts with, with England started, and obviously some of the surf music in America. It's all, it's a lot of surf punk, and which is kind of cool. By the way, I played with Gary Myrick, who is Gary Myrick and the Figures. There's a song called American Train. It's an album, Carla Olsen, she is.
Mm-hmm.
She was in the
Textones.
And there's an album about American train music. So there's a track we did with Gary Myrick and this great Dusty Watson, a brilliant surf drummer, and we do a version of Train Kept a Rollin'. It's out now in the stores, vinyl and CDs. We kick ass. It's punk. It's kind of punkish, but it's not. So that's an example of loving that, even that style, and bringing it forward to today. You know what I mean? And it was great being on that album, but it's an example of having that rock thing mixed with surf maybe. So all music is relative to a degree. I think a lot of the stuff today is very devoid of soul.
Yeah.
I'm not, it's a different medium and how you do things. Again, you go in there, you cut a vocal track, you do 15 takes, bye, see you later.
Yeah.
And the same producers put it together and put the track together, and there you go.
Yeah.
So
I think it's because
your
your sound is very timeless. It doesn't date. And that's why I think that we're still talking about you now, and you've still got a new generation of fans discovering this music.
Well, I'm really happy about that. And I'm happy that the recording quality, and, if we had synths on there or other things, it might have dated it maybe. But I think the production on especially Serious Fun and even on Zoom to a degree, it doesn't sound dated because it doesn't have that whatever the gimmicks were that usually date certain songs, right? If that makes
because
sense.
I think Serious Fun, you can definitely date it. It does sound like a record
maybe,
its time, but
maybe more so.
Zoom it's not dated at all.
Thank you. Yeah, it's pretty cool. And that's another new drummer we play with. But, it's like Bruce was Bruce, we work with him at different times, and he was unique. And I think the real Knack, the Knack that was started had so much to do with Bruce. Of course, playing with Terry Bozzio and Zoom, and Pat Torpey and the last stuff we did and touring with us. He's brilliant, Mr. Big, and fantastic drummer,
Yeah.
But everybody plays different.
How was it as a bass player to play with Terry Bozzio, which of course we know is a machine?
Remarkably easy. Terry, Bruce had quit, and we had one of those classic discussions with him because he asked me to quit to have more power. It was funny. Bruce goes, "You got to quit with me." I go, "I don't want to quit. I got a family. What the hell's wrong with you?" Right? So Bruce didn't want to do it. We gave him one more chance. We had a meeting with him. This is a great classical group story, and we got together with Bruce and we said, Doug goes, "Bruce, if you want to continue, you got to go to therapy." And Bruce, and he really needed to anyway. We all do, always. But Bruce goes, "What? There's nothing wrong with me." And it was like, Bruce Burden is,
yeah.
And Doug said, "Look, Terry Rose is interested. Bruce, think about it for a few days and let's try to work it out." Bruce was defiant. And so Terry got involved, and we went in and started cutting songs with Terry. And Terry was, everybody thought Frank Zappa, he's progressive.
Mm-hmm.
Terry played like a Mr. Magazine, and some of the tracks are just, he's playing like Ringo. He's just playing time. It's not even filling. So Terry is versatile, and I liked hanging out with him. He's a really cool guy. I mean, who knew I'd be playing with Missing Persons without Terry, which sucks. But I got some of the best of Missing Persons with Dale. But Terry was a lot of fun, and we cut a lot of tracks with him. And I think the album could have been produced better. However, some of his drumming was phenomenal. And we did a short tour because Rhino Records didn't know how to promote a new album, unfortunately. And we didn't finish the tour. And unfortunately, I think we deserve more. Got a lot of good reviews to that album. And we were also writing more together. And I was actually contributing 2 songs. One is on the album, the live album called Harder on You. And that was released as a digital single, which I'm really happy about.
Yeah.
And can I tell you a little quick story about that one?
Sure.
I had written that song for that movie, That Thing You Do. And I had Bill Hudson, who was a friend of mine when I was living at the time in Malibu, and Bill did vocals on it. And the demo tape I did, Bruce had played drums and I had Bill to do vocals. And we submitted it for the movie, but it was too late. They already had all the songs. So when we started the 3rd album, we were working together. I said, Burden, I said, "Man, we should do this song, let's figure it out." So he had an idea to change the bridge, make it a little tougher. And Doug loved it. So that song and a song called Tomorrow that ends that album is a riff I had, rockabilly riff, and Burden did a great choral arrangement in the chorus. So there was a real camaraderie between us because we were all sharing in it. And Terry came in later, of course, but Terry was great. and signature drum parts. Pop is Dead is a real cool song, I thought.
Oh,
Yeah, absolutely.
Terry's rolls are killer.
Yeah. Hey, just one question. Sorry, one more about My Sharona. So that had another sort of
Anything you want to talk about, I'm an expert.
he might know
Reality
something
Bites
about it.
versus Pulp Fiction. Do you think the right choice? I personally think Reality Bites was probably the best choice, because you had Quentin and Reality Bites it was the choice for that song, wasn't it?
It's funny because I mentioned that. I've mentioned it at different times, but in an interview I did a few weeks ago, I mentioned that. So it comes up and I go, you people, you don't understand. Back that time, Tarantino was on the fringe. Nobody knew he was going to have a cult movie that's going to go on forever. But who the hell would want Sharona to be thought of with people getting butt fucked, excuse the expression, with Confederate flags in this climate? It really do well.
You don't want that.
Well, but I didn't feel it was right anyway, because that scene was it's hard to watch anyway. And you certainly don't want to hear My Sharona. I think he was doing it as a joke to make fun of us, frankly. But when Ben Stiller called us, and I mean, that got us a tour, and Sharona charted again, by the way. So I like the movie, and I love seeing all those, Winona Ryder and her friends dancing to it.
It's a great scene, isn't it? It's a great scene in the movie.
I love it.
Just a lot of joy and exuberance.
And that's what the song's about. So
yes.
It wasn't a hard choice, really.
Yeah, I personally think you made the damn right
choice.
Yeah,
you made the right choice.
I can't even watch that scene today, let alone having the song in the movie, just saying, but that was cool, because we, again, got a really good tour out of it. And it was nice to see people. And by the way, they did a remix of it too. You probably don't know any of this. And I did get a platinum CD and a platinum cassette, which is the only one I ever got for that movie, because the Sharona was used. But that mix, they did it differently. And what they did was back then you can use like a graph, and you could use a thing to adjust levels. So he adjusted the guitar sounds great, everything's the same, but he did something funny with the drums. He boosted the kick and focused it at a frequency or something. So when you hear it, you hear the kick drum much louder, and there's a different pattern he's playing. Because there's what a ghost kick is, a ghosting. In other words, it's like you hear it, but you don't hear it. Drummers do that maybe. It might be a double, but you only hear the single. So when you mix up the ghost thing, it sounds like it's a double. If you listen to it on YouTube, when you go to that, it's a different mix. And I hear that more on the radio today than I do the original. I know nobody ever thinks of these things, but just letting you know.
Do you have a preference on which mix?
Yeah, because I like this one. The guitars crank more, but I still like the ambience in the original. Yeah, Mike really nailed it. Got the sound. The drums are more organic, and it doesn't push frequencies that weren't there.
Yeah.
But I just wish they played the whole solo. I hear it a lot on the radio. But
absolutely. Like in Australia, we didn't know about. I mean, I was only 8, 9. My pocket money was going to the record store and buying that single.
Yeah.
And that was the template for the Knack and My Sharona. But when I actually heard the whole song with that beautiful solo, wow, it's just one of the greatest guitar solos.
Well, it is
of all time. It's up there. It's just magnificent.
I must say, in Central Ohio, though, they do play the entire track.
Well, I'm sure in LA, I don't hear FM radio I'm sure in Sirius you can hear it. I just drive and I listen to FM radio, and I mean, I'm sure in other parts of this big America and the world, I'm sure they play it all, but I don't hear it nearly as much as I used to, because FM has become program hell. Everything's tight now. They have commercials, so they can't allow a song the full length of a song, and but hearing it, like I heard at the supermarket the other day, like Ralph's or Trader Joe's, I hear it, or Walmart, who the hell knows? And when I'm in line, the other day I was in, grocery store, and I'm in a bad mood. I want to get the hell out of there. What am I here for? And too many masks, and I'm hearing the song. I'm going, this is surrealistic. I'm still hearing Sharona. I mean, the pandemic, I mean, Ralph's, and I'm going, what are you bitching about, Prescott?
Yeah.
It got my attention. Go, thank God we're part of the culture, and that song still excites people. And I've jammed on that song with a lot of musicians, and YouTube, this thing's doing with my kids.
Yeah.
The Nelsons and one, and I don't know if you ever seen that one on YouTube, but the Nelson kids singing it with us, with, you know, my kid, Noah, Gabe, Liv, and Gabe's killing it on drums, and Liv's nailing the solo, and the Nelson. So it's like, I was a big Rick Nelson fan growing up. So you can imagine me going, okay, Rick Nelson was my guy, then his kids, and then my kids. And it was like, wow, how cool is that?
Yep. Yep.
And I'm the only one in the band that had children, by the way.
Absolutely.
Oh, really?
I was really blessed. And besides them being talented, I didn't manage them. I didn't have a whip over them, you know, demanding perfection. What I did was jam with them. I mean, I taught them things, but we jammed a lot. And Gabe is a drummer. I mean, we played in his kindergarten class, you know. We did Kashmir when he was 5, okay? I said, Gabe, keep time, just do this.
You're bringing him up well. Bringing him up well.
And
You did a good job.
Yeah, as he got older, you know, I mean, he got older and he started, you know, we jam. Jamming is so important. I mean, I play classical. I love it, you know, but, you know, jamming, you know, it wasn't just you guys play this and you play it this way. No, because if they're good, they'll come up with stuff anyway. And they did. I never asked them to play Sharona, but they just did it because they wanted to. And Gabe actually plays drums with Missing Persons when the main drummer doesn't show up. We're playing next weekend in Catalina, and Gabe's playing drums.
Oh, sweet.
So how cool is that, playing with my son on drums with Missing Persons?
You're probably a proud papa there.
I'm real proud because, I mean, Gail wouldn't use him if he wasn't good enough.
Absolutely.
Right? And he's playing Terry's parts, which is not easy. It gives him nightmares, actually. But he plays but he can play Let Me Out. And most drummers, Gabe said, God, you don't get it. Sharona's easy. Let Me Out kills me, especially the way Bruce plays it. So it's good to know that Bruce is also remembered.
Oh, absolutely. What an outstanding opener to an album, you know?
I was thinking the same thing.
It's just an outstanding opener.
And that song wasn't written. Frustrated wasn't written prior.
Yeah.
Number Your Name wasn't really, but Otara we never practiced until we played a lot. Yeah. Selfish was a song written. See, when the band's together, you write for the band. And when you're doing demos, you're not writing for the band. You're writing for yourself.
Ideas.
That's why all the parts that came, we did it live. We learned a song in rehearsal and we play it live. And then the song, even Sharona, I have tapes of us playing Starwood. We had a little different version of it. The guitar solo was a lot longer. Drum part was a little different, but we evolved. But Let Me Out, we needed an opener, and then they wrote an opener.
Yeah.
So I'm really proud of the fact that the band brought out the best writing.
Absolutely.
As well, and they wrote great songs. I'm proud to have worked with them as well on that level, because if you don't have the songs, you know, you got problems. And unfortunately, they had too good a song, which was the best in the world. But you know what I mean.
Yeah.
I'm just curious if there's anything like in the vaults or anything that may possibly come out, or has everything been released that was?
Well, some of the reissues, there's a lot. Then you have like 2 years ago, there was a reissue of Doug's solo stuff, but they included some live stuff we did. I'm so grateful that I'm here. One of the reasons I'm here is because of the coming release of that album we did at the House of Blues. And, you know, I'm glad that particular album has a lot of songs from each of our albums. And it makes me very happy. And actually, one of my favorite songs on that Normal as the Next Guy album is It's Not Me. I think it's a great song, and I love playing it, by the way. And so all of a sudden, this comes out, and people, so far, everybody I've done interviews with loves the energy. We had a new drummer, Holmes Jones, as he's affectionately called. Yep. Do you ever see the video called Funhouse, by the way?
I've seen it.
Yeah.
Okay, now that came out after, that was like our first show together as a band. So, and then we did, so if you want to know what we look like, that's what we look like. And he was younger, not that much younger, but he looked kind of like Elvis. He had these sideburns, but he had a lot. He wasn't Bruce Gary. He wasn't Terry Bozzio. He wasn't Billy, but he was great because he had all this energy and he was great. And I liked his input into the band. I love hanging out with him too.
Yeah, I think anyone who's on the stool behind the Knack has to have energy because of Bruce.
Yeah, he was in that album. I think
Yeah.
has a lot of excitement to it, and I'm maybe technically I wish I could have been there maybe to bring out because it's off the board, so the vocals.
Okay.
And I wish we could have maybe double tracked it, and I could have been part of it. But nevertheless, people like it, and they're not worried about technical things,
Yeah. One
well,
question
we're just glad to have it.
Absolutely.
I'm more than glad. I'm making look at my new friends I've met, by the way.
Yeah.
And a lot of people are really like it. I'm grateful. I really am, because when you get a surprise like this, you just don't know. The album cover, the reason people ask why there's only 3 of us. How's that? I didn't hear that question from you guys. I'm kidding.
Well, you didn't really have an official. Well,
we didn't have a drummer yet.
Right.
Yeah.
We did a promo picture. I mean, that was the 3 of us. We didn't have a drummer yet because we did a lot of the stuff. And then luckily we got a drummer after that. Yeah.
Yeah.
When was this promo picture shot? I mean, is this around Zoom?
Yeah. We had a great picture of Terry for Zoom. This was when we took pictures for Normal as the Next Guy, right?
Oh, okay.
These were for that actually. And I'm glad that nobody ever saw that picture though. It was for like when we handed out promos, but I'm really glad that this picture was found and Randy St. Nicholas shot it. And I think it's a great picture of all of us, really. It captured a different Knack. Doug's not sneering. He's got a good look and we all look good. And I think it fit. Yeah. But that's why we don't have 4 people, because we didn't have 4 people. There's no mystery.
Speaking of live, one of my all-time favorite live performances is live at Carnegie Hall. Is that ever going to get an official release? Because I think it got on Laserdisc and then nothing. Yeah.
It probably was out on VHS or maybe beta, but
well, it's true. It was out on Laserdisc years ago, Pioneer, and they went bankrupt or something. Beth is Doug's sister, who's handling a lot of the business, has tried to find who owns it.
Right.
Because I think if anything's a testimony or testament of us playing live, it's the Carnegie Hall show. There's other, like Miami we did, but that was a warm-up for Carnegie Hall, and that's not edited. I think it could be mixed better. I mean, that's just basically a rough mix. But I grew up in New York, and playing Carnegie Hall was the thrill of my life. You can imagine, right? And the audience, and that was just a great show. I mean, there was no fixes. I mean, that's what we sounded like live. And again, I got to talk about Bruce, because that drumming, man, when they showed, he was just killing it,
Yeah.
And Doug was on his game, and Burton again, but just, we did Not Fade Away as an encore, and he's killing it on that. And we did End of the Game, which is like flying, and the slide playing is terrific.
Yeah.
And Doug, of course, had to screw with the newspapers in New York, and goes, he quoted Bob Dylan, "The times they are a-changing." And, quotes a lot about critics in your pens, blah, blah, blah. So, this is for you guys. And we did a Hard Day's Night going, fuck you. We're the Knack, and we're doing a Hard Day's Night. Yeah. We're the Beatles. We're not the Beatles, but we're doing the Beatles. So we didn't get a good review, actually, of course. But that was like a kind of thing to the New York Times. It really didn't have to do that. But people loved us doing Hard Day's Night. And then the whole Beatle thing you guys never talked about. I don't know how we would compare it to the Beatles anyway.
Yeah.
And there's this myth, and I guess before we did that album, I mean, just because we signed with Capitol, I guess in the quotes were, we were the fastest selling single since the Beatles. So people decided, well, they're comparing them to the Beatles. And then the critics said, they're not the Beatles. Well, we only have one singer, dummies. I mean, isn't that enough to know we're not the Beatles? And if anything, I think we're more like the Who, especially Bruce and Burton's guitar playing, or Kinks or other people, not the Beatles. And
Small
also
Faces.
Yeah, I love, by the way, man. All those guys was great. And also the Maybe Tonight is a ballad where it's Beatlesque, obviously. It's got, It's got harmonium on there. It's got, you know, the sounds, the mellotron sounds, right? It was just like backwards drums, but that's a ballad. But none of those songs, Beatles weren't hard rock. So anyway, we got the stigma, by the way. And I still to this day never, I mean, it's a way to cheapen us because, and Robert Hilburn did a thing in LA Times where he had a picture of the Beatles and then they had us like this, Beatles here and us.
Do you think it's because of this? Do you think it's because of this photo? Because it's similar to With the Beatles, with the black and white.
Yeah,
I mean, this is a great album cover, by the way. But you know,
Good.
Well, they also brought out the rainbow label that they hadn't used since the mid 60s.
Well, that was Doug insisted on it. But again, the Beach Boys were on that label as well.
Right. But I know there was just a lot of similarities.
But that was it.
And, you know.
But that picture, by the way, Randy shot it. It was the first photo session. She never saw Meet the Beatles. She didn't do shading. This was Bruce being Bruce, Doug being the snare.
Yeah.
I was just like, And Burton, that picture wasn't like, we just did a photo session and that picture was picked.
It's iconic, Prescott. It's an iconic photo.
Yeah, but it became like the only picture a lot of people saw at the time. Good Girls Don't had a great photo for the sleeve, by the way. And, you know, that's kind of cool. Myself, I think people should look at that. But it's great. It captured a vibe. That vibe was, that was our personalities. And the Beatles had a great fit, but they also shaded the faces. So even, and again, I'm not here to defend it, but it's almost like by making us compare to the Beatles, what you're doing is you're putting a hell of a handicap on us.
Yeah. Well, that was, I think a lot of the media were pushing that. And even as a young boy, you know, loving music, 8, 9, what I was being fed in Australia is, you know, comparisons to the Beatles through the media. It was just ridiculous, you know.
Like, it's crazy, you know. I mean,
you would have thought Capitol would have learned their lesson with Klaatu. I'm just saying.
Well, yeah, but the Capitol had nothing to do with the album cover. Mike Chapman mixed it. Mike Chapman told them what he thought. So they didn't, there was no, I heard a story that Capitol invested all this money and made us into this band and then hyped us as this band, right? But the thing is, it's absurd because again, we got no money. Mike Chapman was the one really that made it our sound. He wasn't copying George Martin. And they didn't even have time to advertise because the album took off so quick. So all these things doesn't matter in today's, I'm not being defensive, but it was just circumstance. It wasn't like all prefabricated, is all I'm saying. And I would never want to be compared to the Beatles anyway, or anybody. The Who, maybe, because they were my favorite live band. I saw them many times, and you know, I mean, damn, you know, you talk about the Who. It's like, you know, and the Stones, of course, and all those groups, you know.
With the Beatles comparison, you just a little segue. You did some work with George Harrison. Did George ever sort of talk about, you know, what you guys went through and the Beatles comparison? Did he ever mention that in conversations?
No. Well, when I lived in England, I was lucky enough. I made some friends, and one of my friends I met was Mick Taylor's wife. And I had met Mick Taylor. He was into playing chess, and at that time, a lot of people were in the, you know, they had Fischer and Spassky playing, and I was playing chess. So I heard Mick play chess, and all I wanted to do was jam with Mick. I mean, I was 19. Nobody knew who the hell I was. 20 years old, but I always carried my bass with me. So I did meet a lot of celebrities because I met Mick. Well, actually, my manager was Stuart Granger's son, the famous actor, and his girlfriend ran a modeling agency. Praise the Lord for that. So I used to have a calendar on my wall going, can I meet March, please? You know,
living the life.
That was the best. And I was
rock and roll lifestyle.
I wasn't successful. I was in a band rehearsing, you know, to do a new album, but nobody knew who I was, but it was a good time. But anyway, so I started to meet people. I met, you know, Mickey Finn from T-Rex. I got to hear Goat's Head Soup before anybody did at Mick's house, Mick Jagger's house, because Rose knew Mick and Mick was playing with Mick. I mean, I think it's in my journal, so I know I didn't make it up, by the way, just so you know, okay? But when I went out, we used to go dancing at a club called Tramps, and George would go there. Now, I was dating a girl who knew the girl, Derek Taylor's secretary, and Derek Taylor was the Beatles publicist. So because of that, we'd all go dancing. So I met George at a disco earlier on. Hey, I'm with her. How you doing? We danced together. I mean, everybody danced together, right? I think Higher Ground Stevie Wonder was a big hit then. But, I was a nobody. I mean, hey, I'm friends with Rose. How you doing? So when I got the call to do a session in '86, nobody told me who the session was with. And I go, it was Sound City. And I go, okay, cool. I mean, you paying? Yeah, we're paying. Just come down. So Bruce had recommended me this producer, Bob Rose, apparently. So I get down there and he says, listen, man, don't freak out, man. That's for George Harrison. So I kind of said, I started to laugh. I said, I met George Harrison. And he goes, yeah, sure, right? Because, I mean, I didn't meet him I met him in like a weird club where, So I said, great. So I went in there, I met him, and I didn't talk at first. And Jim Keltner was the drummer, the legend, of course, and Lawrence Juber played guitar. He was with McCartney. So I was a little nervous, and I said, hey, George, how you doing? And he said, yeah. I said, listen, I know you don't remember, but I was back in England and we go to Tramps, and I knew this girl I was dating named such and such. And he goes, oh, I remember her because oh, okay, cool. And I go, and he says, yeah, I heard you with the Knack. And I like your good album, I like your record. McCartney did as well. And I'm going, okay, thank God, because now at least I was a somebody. I wasn't just some guy coming in to do a session. So that gave me a lot of, okay, I can relax, right? So he gives me a chord chart, and it's like, oh, Jesus, like George Harrison chords, very weird, diminished, augmented chords. And I'm in the studio. George is in the studio shooting his rhythm guitar track next to me, pretty much. Keltner's and Lawrence are in the other room. So I'm playing, going, oh, shit, I'm playing with Keltner. So I can rush. Oh, Jesus, what if they stop the tape? Okay, this is me, right? Mentally freaking out. Because Keltner played so much in the pocket, Bruce was on top of the beat. Keltner completely in the beat. So I had to hold back, I had to read the chord chart, I had to try to invent things. And also I was definitely afraid they'd stop rolling the tape because I screwed up. You know what I mean? I've done sessions before. The last thing you want to do is stop the tape because you made a mistake. And I didn't, and I felt like I probably had 2 strikes and I was gone. I mean, honestly, you think I had an ego because of Knack? No, I'm playing with all these great people. Luckily, we did a take and they didn't stop it because of me. We redid it, and I didn't have to overdub anything. I made up some lines. I didn't screw up, and I thank God that I didn't screw up. Later, I thank God that I played well. But after I did the session, it was like, okay, so I did 2 days of work. They only used 1 day, It was a song used for the trailer of Shanghai Supplies called Someplace Else. And I was going, oh, great. And the producer went to England, told me I'd probably be coming to England at some point to do a few other songs at George. He liked where I played. So I was supposedly getting married in a few months, and I started to think, well, maybe I can put this off, because I was nervous as hell, of course, right? And am I really going to do this? Am I really going to get married? Of course, having kids was a dream, and God, I wouldn't. Who knew? That's what I say. Who knew, right? And so I get a call a few weeks later that George met Jeff Lynne, and Bob was fired, and George decided he's going to have Jeff Lynne do the album. So thank God he did, didn't he? Because that was the best album George did, obviously. And so I never played with George after that. I thanked him. I had his number. I thanked him for letting me play with him. And of course, whatever. But I was glad to have played on that, the trailer for the soundtrack. And I still have a tape of the song too. And it's good, but Jeff Lynne did a different version of it. So that's my little story. And it's kind of unique because, again, I had danced with George.
You danced with a Beatle.
I danced with a lot of girls too at the same time.
Yeah, absolutely. Or George danced with you.
So
yeah, exactly. But the fact that I had some presence, I didn't have to tell them I played with something.
Yeah.
Everybody heard the album. It was big in England. We played on Top of the Pops, so it wasn't like it's a mystery. Probably played enough of that song. I heard it a million times. So it was cool. And so that was a great experience for me, and fondly think of that. And again, it's weird too for me to be. I always thought, how are you going to be in a band? How does Paul and feel losing John and George. And then here I am not having Bruce and Doug.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Isn't that, to me, it was, wait a minute, how the hell did, it's strange. So when I didn't know what it was to have lost 2 members, all of a sudden I lose 2 members. It's very strange. And it was sad. And so me even doing these interviews is a way of kind
keeping
of
the legacy alive.
Yeah. And I
great.
mean that sincerely.
Yeah.
I saw you guys in '98 when you played up in Cleveland at the Agora with Terry Bozzio playing drums, right in the front row.
Well, if you can
Great
find a video, or I have yet to find anybody with a cassette or a video of us playing with Terry Bozzio. Isn't that bizarre?
There's no recordings of that?
No. We were supposed to come back to LA and do a live thing. We didn't. The thing we broke up, Terry left and laughed. So think about that. If anybody ever, what was it like? Because I have no idea. What was it like?
Oh, you were tight as can be. I mean, Terry Bozzio just played right to the song. Of course, he's a professional, for crying out loud. But I was like standing right in front of Doug. I mean, there wasn't that many people there.
Wow.
I couldn't believe
no
it.
idea. Did you hear?
But you guys were, what's that?
Did you hear Terry's solo? Terry did a drum solo. I used to stand there with Burton. I'd look at Burton watching him, and I'd look at Burton going, "What the fuck?" He played
well,
like
I was kind of in awe.
Whoa,
because I knew the Zoom album, but when I went to see you guys play, me and my buddy went, and I went, "Oh my God, I got to see him," because I was big fans. So I'm going, "Oh my God, here's a chance to see him finally."
Will you do me a favor?
When I saw that Terry Bozzio was playing drums, I just damn near cracked myself. Well,
if Rhino was smart, they would have advertised it anyway. And because I couldn't believe that this wasn't a big deal, because we were still mid-touring, they didn't promote the album. If you got any friends still in Cleveland, or anybody that ever, I would be eternally grateful.
I'll see what I can find.
Well, anyone watching this show, when we put it up, just send a message and we'll pass it through to you. So anybody, viewers watching this, got any footage? Yeah.
We didn't even have a video. I got a video my wife took of us recording a couple of songs, but I just gotta be, Terry's I know there's drum freaks I would have seen us play.
It's got to be out there
somewhere. I
somewhere.
thought that there would have been tons of drum guys out in the audience.
Yeah, you got it. So if we can do that, I would be very grateful. I would give somebody a finder's fee. Whatever that is, I don't care.
We'll put the word out. We'll put the word out internationally.
Now, isn't it weird too? Because I'm playing missing. We just played a great show the other day, by the way, Cruel World, with all, Morrissey played, Bauhaus played, Blondie played, Berlin, all these great groups, and we did really well, by the way.
Yeah,
and
I was going to ask. Yeah, what's it like playing with the missing persons? You love it? Well,
it's pretty much just Dale. We've had different players, but I love the music, and I add my own touch to it. So it's not, I'm not playing synth parts. I am, but I'm playing my own parts too. Mm-hmm. So I love the music, and to me, it's not dated. And she does a really good job, and I like the song. So, I dig it, and we're getting good shows now too, which I really think is fantastic.
That first Missing Persons album was absolutely brilliant.
It is.
I'm assuming you guys are covering a lot of that material though on those first.
Yeah, we were doing a good mix of them, and it's funny because the guy who discovered us, Bruce Raven, discovered Missing Persons. So there's a connection with that, and we were both signed to Capitol.
Yeah,
which is pretty interesting. And I had met Dale, by the way, earlier on before she took her clothes off, by the way.
Oh, yeah.
Hustler. And she was working as a photographer's assistant. I did live in Boston for a while, but I didn't meet Dale there. But I knew her, became friends. And then all of a sudden, I'm watching her become this superhuman model on stage and inventing these costumes. She was great. And the album was terrific. Terry was brilliant. Warren was brilliant. And I thought it was a great album, and it's really cool.
If we didn't have Dale, we wouldn't have Gaga, Lady Gaga.
You got it. You got it.
I do. Yeah. I do have another question.
Please, anything you want.
I know you're playing with Gary Myrick.
Yeah.
The first two Gary and the Myrick albums are absolutely classics. And I like Gary Myrick's Language EP.
Oh my
Absolutely
God,
wonderful.
tell him he'll be so happy.
Well, I've got those. In fact, I don't know anybody else's interest, but the first one, they were reissued on CD, but the first one must have came in and out of print. And now it costs like $1 bazillion to get that.
Yeah,
But you can
because
find it on vinyl and stuff. But how did you go about start playing with Gary?
well, I knew Gary sort of, and we met each other, and well, actually, what happened was they did a showing of Valley Girl at
Mhm.
Tarantino's movie theater in L.A. And Josie Cotton was going to come because I had worked with her in the movie, and I guess I talked to Gary about it. So Gary was going to be there because that song "She Talks in Stereos" in the movie.
We'll show Josie while we're at it.
Well, that's a great picture, man. I'm telling you. And she's cool. She's out other albums, and things happen. But I again, it's a great album. I wish more people heard that. It's really good. So Gary was there, and we hit it off. Obviously, I've seen him play, seen us play, and we said we started jamming together, and then we got that session I told you about earlier. That you really should hear that song because Gary's killing it on vocals and guitar. And so we did a show in the Viper Room about 4 months ago. The COVID thing screwed everything up, as you can well imagine. So Gary didn't play very much. So we're going to see what's going on. And, Dale plays her shows, and I can play with other people too. And I will do that, by the way. Gary's great. He's a great blues guitar. He's from Dallas, right?
Yeah. But his guitar work on those records are just phenomenal.
He's excellent. He's not known as much as he should, because whenever mentioned, nobody really knows. I'm telling you, I said, check this guy out. He's fabulous.
Because I didn't know if you guys played around the same time that Gary Myrick and the Figures did. Probably crossed paths then, didn't you?
Yeah, we definitely did. I mean, John Wade, who Gary worked on that album, Missing You, with John Wade.
No
And
breaks.
did some great stuff. So, we all did a lot of different things in the course of our careers. But I like Gary, and I'm glad that I'm working with him. There's other things I'm doing as well, but until they're done, I can't say they're done. And I wish we can do. I wish people are always asking me to do the Knack again, put it together. Agents have been, ever since that album came out, I'm getting calls, right? And even in the Missing Person show I just did, agents are coming up. Hey, here's my card. You want to do the Knack shit? I says, yeah, well, I really wish I could. And I wish Burden would want to. He's gotten very complacent. And
you could be like the Smithereens. The Smithereens have like different guest vocalists, Marshall
Well, I was
Crenshaw.
thinking of doing that. Actually, Dave Grohl's a huge Knack fan, and I've met him a number of times. And I thought it might be cool. Of course, now forget it. I mean, what a tragedy to have gone through.
Yeah.
And he's never available. I met him, and I know he was a huge Knack fan. Even Kurt Cobain was, believe it or not. And
100%.
I would try to figure out. There's even a thing on an audio thing of them doing Sharona. Kurt and everybody. Who knew, right?
Yeah.
But I
knew
don't know.
He was a big fan.
He's great. Well, but I don't know. We're known, but if I do it, I don't know. I wish Burden would give me more credibility, and I think I'd like you. So I don't know. I'm still figuring it out, because it would have to be more of a celebration of, rather than trying to be. Otherwise, they can always get into a what do they call that now? Oh, God, I'm blanking on the name. A cover Knack, a tribute Knack band, and I want a tribute Knack band with one original living member. How's that?
Well, there's some bands out there that don't have
sarcastic
any
stuff.
originals. Prescott?
Sweet.
Yeah.
Sweet's been playing around with one guy. There's two Sweets. There's two Creedence. There's a lot of twos of bands.
Little River Band in America's not even original.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So you know what I mean. I could do it, but I don't know. I'm just.
Yeah. Would be great to see.
We have albums. We have songs to do. I don't have to invent songs. We got them, and when I'm seriously considering. I just got to feel when it's right. Okay. Yeah. And maybe I'm closer now, but I wish Burden would want to do it. And that to me would be a big part, only for him, celebrate him, not for me.
Yeah.
Ultimately, right? So keep your fingers crossed on that one.
Absolutely. You were in a bit of a, like in the late 70s and 80s, there were a lot of those what they call power pop bands like Plimsolls and The Beat. Did you sort of have an affinity, feel that you were part of a scene, or you were just doing, singular, independent, your own sort of thing?
Well, there was no scene yet. I mean, we were just playing, like, Pimples might have come out. There were a lot of bands playing. I mean, I was in a group, when the Knack broke up, I looked on the group called Population 5, and we should have been signed. Matt Sorum was a drummer who ended up in Guns N' Roses, and Danny Stagg and Johnny B. Frank ended up in Kingdom Come as of the last few years. So I've had a lot of chances, so to speak. And Josie Cotton, I thought was going to be big. We did a lot of television as well. So, but nobody really, I think we were too busy working to even hang with anybody. I mean, that was pretty much it. We really wanted to work because we wanted, there was no other way to sell us. Right in that day, there was no social media. So we had to go to Frisco. We had to go anywhere we could to play and open for people, and we did. And we actually, one of the great shows, we opened for the Police up in San Francisco before our album was out, and, they were more punk back then, but I love, obviously, right? What a great band.
Yeah.
And Bruce hated Stuart Copeland because he was really good.
Oh, I think Bruce would have given him a run for his money.
It was wonderful competition.
Yeah.
Meaning, and they got more successful, but it was funny because Bruce, loves Stuart, of course, but it's like, because he was, he was getting all the stuff. But Stuart's, but again, what a great career they've had, songwriting and vocals, and they had good luck and great management.
Yeah.
And a career planner maybe, but that's life is. You can't figure it out sometimes.
Yeah.
But that's the way it is with every group. Look at all the groups that I've known, you've known. They've got older, they've changed. People have passed on. Groups have reformed, unreformed. It's really strange, And I just want to do it good, whatever I do, kind of,
Yeah.
I mean, that's the key.
Do you still write a lot? Do you write a lot?
Yeah, I'm writing more, and I've written. If people have asked me if I have a book. Well, I certainly have a book and a half, but I just don't know how I want to tell it because I've got a lot of journals about my life. My life wasn't a picnic. Nobody's is. You got to have the ups and downs. So I'd like to share it. And I also had a gift for writing poetry. And, I'm a poet, but you don't know it kind of thing. And I've got people that wanted to publish my work because I'm more than just a bass player, I guess, apparently. So, and that's really who I am. And talking to you guys, more of who I am than just the guy,
Absolutely.
So hopefully I'll have some stuff out. I've got a lot of songs that I've got to decide how to put together and do them. So right now I'm just kind of living, but I do have goals maybe, and also playing with people. I love playing live. I mean, after this pandemic and not being able to play, and then playing the masked faces, you can't see if they hate you or not. It takes a lot of courage to have done it, and belief that this was not going to go on forever. It's been in Australia. I mean, God, you guys went through serious lockdowns. And
yeah, we did, but we're out on the other side, and it feels like it's getting back to reality. We're just it's back to where it was before.
Well, there are warnings in America. The new variant of the variant of the variant of the variant. I'm going to put a group together called the Variants. By the way,
that's a good name.
There you go. That's a good idea.
It'll be a punk band.
Yeah.
And just saying, we'll get you. That's the
Well, you did do a little thing with Burton last year or the year
wasn't that
before
great?
about the corona.
Well, he called me one day, and I already had seen so many crappy videos. I'm going, no.
Why not?
No, not this thing. Please, God. Actually, I don't know if you know this. 5 years earlier, on Alex Jones, that weirdo guy, there was a version called My Ebola, and guys in hazmat suits did that. And when I heard about this corona, I said, oh, geez, now it's another pandemic that they're miming. I mean, it's flattery that they covered, there's all these versions of Sharona. 9 Coronas, obviously My Bologna, and everybody did all these weird things. But now it's a disease, right? So Burton, we had this idea, and Burton says, and it was pretty goofy, but I liked it. And Burton's playing the guitar solo. His dogs are there right now. I'm in my home, and I flew myself in. And by Corona, first of all, that got more press internationally than we've gotten in 100 years. I couldn't believe it. All the news feeds had it. And I'm going, this is a joke. Well, okay, Corona was not over. Okay. Now somebody did a version of called My Flurona. I almost died when they said, "Oh, great, let's have another invention here." But
Yeah.
what are you going to do? And I've seen a lot of versions of Sharona by all kind of people through the years. And I look on YouTube, and some I laugh, some I cry, and some you go, "That's pretty good." But so it's nice to be part of that thing. But yeah, that was a real funny thing we did. And it was supposed to be comical, but nobody knew the virus was going to keep going. God knows.
Do you have any idea how many copies My Sharona has actually sold? Do you have somebody give you a figure of this is the actual figure of how much this song has sold, or
more than has been reported, because I knew we sold a lot in Europe. I mean, they give quotes, but over the years, I'm sure we've sold millions more, but nobody's counting. Maybe I don't know. I'm sure there's receipts. I don't know, but I know that. It's funny because these people tell me, like in Canada, we had a lot of, even for the second album, we had gold records. And, Israel, it was a hit, big hit. And believe it or not, the Philippines, my mom, when she was in a nursing home, had some Philippine nurses. And it was funny when the song came up, because I played it, my mom was there and we heard it was a show we were on, a TV show. And she says, "My God, that song is like the national anthem in the Philippines. All these kids have grown up listening to their parents play it." And I do have a gold single from the Philippines. So I have no idea how, who heard this song and where, but I think it's a lot more than I imagined. Yeah. And, when they play it at a football game or a baseball game, it's like, it's hard to believe sometimes, really. So the song maybe became this thing, but maybe it was supposed to become this thing.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
like destiny.
I wish we had another hit. I mean, but we could have, but it was, again, maybe just mismanagement. Let's blame that, okay?
Yeah.
But we played for 30 years together, so we didn't hate each other that much.
Yeah.
Somebody asked me that. What family doesn't have issues? What band? I mean, the Bee Gees strangled each other too. I mean, look at Oasis. Gee, they almost killed each other, It doesn't mean it's a recipe for success, but we went through ups and downs. We grew up as people, and Doug entered AA and became a wonderful sponsor for so many people that are having issues. So you just don't know where things are going to go, And so it ended up where it ended up. And I'm sorry that Doug, maybe cigarette smoking was a problem, and he did get cancer. And Bruce, I don't think wanted to take chemo. I was close to him, but he tried other things. And it's, I never would have thought any of that would have happened. So I'm glad that, I'm telling the story pretty much.
Yeah.
Was it up or not?
Well, didn't you guys pretty much break up after Round Trip because
we broke up a number of times?
Bruce and Doug?
Well, there was a bit of a conflict. No, yeah, they did. Of course we did. I mean, and Doug was, control freak. And it's okay to a degree, but sometimes you can't just think you're right all the time. And he wasn't. And he grew, he matured. And that album, Jack Douglas had a big play in that album. Doug did not tell Jack what to do. And who would? Jack's Jack. Jack's great. And I've talked to him since. So, and he did a great article at the time we did the album. He said he loved working with us. It was easy. He enjoyed it. We're a great band. And that's a great compliment. But, you just go through phases and everything. And I don't know. You can't rewrite history. So
no.
I know things were wrong. In retrospect, I look at my journals and I go, damn,
Yeah.
But if we didn't get Mike Chapman, maybe things would have gone different, right?
Yeah.
So Mike was when you asked me in the beginning, he was a major, I think, for influence for us, because I believed him. He gave me confidence, and he was right, and he knew how to record us properly for what we were. And I wouldn't have known what to do. And a lot of other producers would have done it differently, by the way.
Well, listening to those records, I wouldn't change a thing. I think they're just perfect power pop rock, whatever. They're just brilliant. And when we started before we recorded, you dropped a little bit of a little snippet of a Woodstock story. So do you want to share that with us if you've still got time? I'd like to hear that.
Well, one thing, I don't know if you read my bio, the story of Velvet Turner. You read that, right? Yes?
Yep. Yep.
I saw
okay.
mention of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, Velvet, when I was hanging out in the Village in New York, you know, from Brooklyn, and Velvet came to audition as the lead singer for a blues band that was in. And Velvet was like a 6'3" version of Jimi Hendrix. He looked like him, not exactly, but he had the fro and he had a lot of clothing and he sang. And after we jammed, I said something to him like, you know, where'd you get your clothes, you know? And he says, oh, you know, Jimmy gave them to me. I'm going, Jimmy who? He goes, Jimi Hendrix. This is 68, right? And I looked at him like, who the hell are you? You don't know Jimi Hendrix. Nobody, Jimmy was a god, right?
Yeah.
So anyway, and I had seen Jimmy at 68 at Fillmore, and I already saw him play live. So I knew like Fillmore East was the greatest place in the world. That was my education at Fillmore, because I saw every band. It was cheap, you know, and Bill Graham had the best shows, blues. I saw Led Zeppelin's first tour, Jeff Beck. Everybody played at Fillmore. The Who, I've seen multiple times. Jimi Hendrix, Cream. I mean, man, look at all those bands that are just like influenced my life. And my bass playing too, of course. So, you know, thank God for Bill Graham, you know, because he made it all possible. But anyway, so Velvet, I kept in touch with Velvet, and he told me he's got tickets to see Jimmy play Philharmonic Hall in New York at Thanksgiving. And he said afterwards, you know, it's a birthday party for him uptown. So I go, sure, I'll go. So we went to the concert. Next thing you know, we're at the birthday party, and I'm freaking out going, what the hell's going on here, right? You know, how'd I get here? So Velvet did know Jimmy. I met Jimmy a couple of times. I didn't say much. How could you, right? Hey, nice to meet you. So, but I knew, but Velvet, I put a group together with Velvet. He played guitar, and you know, people tell different stories about Velvet. But Richard Lloyd from television also knew Velvet, and you know, they had played together. So he did know Jimmy, and Jimmy, you know, had hangers on or people he, you know, whatever Jimmy. He was very good, you know, very charitable to people. He gave Velvet a guitar, as far as I know. So anyway, we had a group together, and we didn't really play much. And because of Velvet, I was able to get backstage. And for me, always in the audience, to go backstage to see all these shows and go to these clubs that were exclusive, really opened my life, let alone knowing that I really do want to get into music. Because if you're not in the audience, you ain't seeing anything. But Velvet knowing Jimmy, he always getting in places because he said he knows Jimmy. So, and I was just with him. We were like, I was with him. I was his bass player. So anyway, I came to California very quickly, and that summer of 70, and just to play and visit. And Jimmy had passed away in New York, which was like, you know, like, how did this happen? You know, people weren't dying from overdoses, but Jimi Hendrix seemed like he was different than everybody else because he, you know, he was Jimi Hendrix. So it was sad. So I went back to New York, and Velvet got a deal. Well, I mean, he got offers to get a deal. We went into a recording studio, we cut a demo, and it was really done well. And we weren't trying to be Jimmy, but so here's the funny thing. The year before, I'm at Woodstock in the audience. The next year, I'm signing a record deal with Michael Lang in Woodstock, New York, with Velvet. How weird is that?
Wow.
Full circle.
That's
Yeah,
surreal.
Jimmy had to pass away, of course, which is tragic. So we sign a record. I mean, it's bizarre, right? So we get a record deal. We come to LA to do our album, and you know, Velvet was a good singer, good guitar player, but you can't. Tom Wilson produced us, by the way, who was an iconic producer. And you know, Velvet was good. We did a really good album, but hell, nobody. It's like the Knack being compared to the Beatles. It's a joke, you know.
Yeah.
So Velvet, it was a lot of pressure on Velvet, and then we did the album. We did some shows, and then you know, I ended up leaving. I went to Boston to play with some group, and then I ended up going to England. So I was friends with Velvet, but Velvet. So we did the album. It's out. It's all over. They were releasing it in Germany, in England, under like weird record, like you know, like some weird names. And then they released it a few years ago, and it's on YouTube. A lot of it. So I wrote some songs, and it's a pretty good album for what it is. Velvet does sound like Jimmy.
Yeah.
But he wasn't supposed to be. So the Woodstock. I saw Jimmy at Woodstock, by the way. And I saw him play in New York 3-4 times, and he, you know, I mean, I mean, he never, he was always different. You know, all those groups, I love Led Zeppelin, all those groups jammed, you know, and that's what a lot of people don't do anymore. And every night they were different. They play the song, but they jam and they go, what the hell, man?
Yeah.
You know, Jimmy did Red House, it's 4 minutes on the album. He did a 12-minute version of it.
Yeah.
So it's like, wow, you know, and these guys were amazing, you know. It changed.
And Prescott, that was like at 5 a.m. in the morning, wasn't it? When Jimmy came on Woodstock, it was a really late time slot in Woodstock.
Well, it was actually the next morning, but the weird thing was I got there. I went upstate New York all the time anyway. So I knew where the area was.
Yep.
But I didn't have any money. You know, Velvet, I didn't go with. He stayed in New York. I actually went up there. I went to this area, Mountaindale it was called, and I hung out there for a day. There was a guy I knew was a singer. And I was thinking, how am I gonna get to Woodstock? You know, and I was hanging out with some girls. And then I figured, okay, how are we gonna get there? So I know this one girl had a guitar case, and I said, what's in the guitar? She said, nothing, just a case. And I took it with me because I figured the only way to get to Woodstock was hitchhike. It was 60 miles away. I had no money. So I went down to the road with my friend, and I said, let's look in the posters about Woodstock. Who's playing? Who do you know? So he said, no, everybody knows Candide. Everybody knows Mountain. Everybody knows. Anybody know Santana? He goes, I never heard of him. I said, either did I. Okay, well, say I'm the guitar player for Santana, and we need to hitchhike to Woodstock. Brilliant. Kids are brilliant, aren't they? Yeah. I was 17, 18. So I had a scam. So guy drives by and he says, where you going? I said, Woodstock. Goes too far. He goes, hey man, I'm the group. I'm playing at Woodstock, Santana. You see we're advertised? Can you drive us there? So he drove us there. So I'm thinking,
hey, you got there. It's all that matters.
Well, I'm thinking all these years later, this guy was telling a story that he drove Carlos Santana to Woodstock, by the way.
Did you get interviewed in the car trips? Like, you know, what's it like being in Santana? And
no. I was just like, just get us there, man. And then it was all backed up. Long story, but I didn't have any money, so I figured I pretend to work there. So I went there with my friend. We signed up to do like hammer and nails because things weren't built yet. So I signed a register. Because I did that, it saved my ass because the next day there was no tickets because everybody broke the fences. So I lost my friend and I was alone. But because I said I worked there, I was able to meet somebody from security, hustle him and go, hey man, can I work security? I'm like, sure. So I got him there. Because of that, I was able to have a place to sleep because they had trailers there. You got to understand that I had no money and I was alone, but they never stopped me. So anyway, because I had a place to sleep, I eat. I hung out there, and then I worked my way down the hill. And when the Who played and Sly, who was my favorite band, by the way, I was maybe about 500-600 yards from the stage. So you can imagine how happy I was. And Jimmy was a no-show. And the next morning, you know, I was disappointed. But the next morning, he was playing at sunrise, pretty much.
Yep.
And I ran down the hill because I was slept there. I didn't know what I was doing, and ran down there. I saw that set, and I didn't understand why he played the Star Spangled Banner, but he had taken melodies and like wove them in anyway. You know, he always improvised. You never knew what he was going to play, and of course, this became a legacy. Velvet didn't see it; he was really mad at me that I saw him, but not him. You know,
wow.
But I saw him, and then it was over. Nobody really saw him play very much, and he had a new band which I knew about, and Velvet knew some of the players in the band, and then I had a hitchhike home. Literally, I hitchhiked to Queens and then got a ride to Brooklyn. Yeah. And my mom goes, where you been? I go, this thing from Woodstock, you know. And here's the kicker of the story. I got a check about 4 weeks later for $40.
Oh, really?
Because I signed up to work and I gave her the check because I stole money to get my bass, you see, so I had to give it back. So she's a good mom.
You need to get a book out. You need to get a book out, Prescott. What do you reckon, Grant?
Yeah.
I think you've just got some great stories. Great
stories he can tell.
But I'm telling the story, it's weird because it's almost like third person. Because I know I lived it because I wouldn't have gotten there. I wouldn't have gotten home. I knew the bass I had. I knew all this. Because I just, like we all do, we improvise in life. You know, we make up stuff. We get where we need to go. I had a hitchhike because I didn't have a car. What do you do?
Yeah.
And it was bizarre when I think back on how it happened, but I'm lucky I did. But if I thought I had no money, I can't go, then I would have missed it. And I saw all those bands already. And, 10 years after I had seen play at Fillmore, Crosby, Stills and Nash were new and they were fabulous. And I love Creedence. Look at all the different styles I like too. I love The Who, I love Sly, I love Creedence. And, so it was fantastic and Jefferson Airplane were also, I love them. And Jack Cassidy was an influence for me on bass too, by the way. A lot of people don't mention him, but he was amazing.
Oh, he's incredible.
Different. I love Gray Slick too. So, mini skirt.
Their whole set was just wwonderful.
It was great. It was great. So a lot of those things help shape who I am as a bass player too. Just not only as just but a lot of influences. Cream, of course, and I loved Yes. Chris Squire was
Oh
sorry,
my God,
he was a freaking genius. And James Jamerson, of course. I did see him play with the Four Tops when I was 18. So there you go. I didn't know it was him, but now I know.
Yeah.
So it's a lot of great music. And after seeing Jaco Pastorius, I cried for 2 days because I realized how great. I did that with John Entwistle too, by the way. But Jaco kind of changed everything, So I'm just saying I'm a big fan of music. So, and there's always something to strive for.
And I think that really was, you could hear it through the Knack there, the first album, because they had a sense of heritage of rock. Because you're sponges of all the acts and all the previous bands and crystallized in that one album,
Well, I love the fact that we could do rockabilly. Bruce could do, all that like Heartbeat. I mean, we did our version like a
Roy Big O, yeah.
It was, but it's all that fast time. It's brilliant. Only Bruce would have thought of that. And
Buddy Holly.
Humble Pie did a version of Heartbeat, by the way.
Yeah.
Well, the beautiful thing with Heartbeat, though, you make it your own.
Right.
You can listen to it, and you may know that it's a cover, but the way you pulled it off, it was totally the Knack.
Yeah.
And
even on this album, you've got some great covers. Yeah. Great covers.
We always did covers, and we pull them out because we knew them. At rehearsals, we pick up a song. One day, why we do Tequila Break On Through, we were rehearsing, and Bird was screwing around. He started playing Tequila, so me and Bruce joined him, of course. And then Doug came in and started singing Break On Through, similar chords. And then it was so good, we started doing it live. And Last Train, we screw around with. We did Beatles. We did Lawyers, Guns, and Money. There's a YouTube clip. We did Cinnamon Girl. We did Come a Little Bit Closer. We did Everybody's Got Something to Hide But Me and My Monkey. We did a lot of covers from because we love music. So we just throw anything in.
Absolutely. And it just fits like a glove. It doesn't sound jarring in the set. It seems like it's, if you didn't know these bands, you just go, oh, it just sounds great.
Well, Hard Way, the Kinks version, which is great, but we did our own way, obviously.
Yeah.
And which was it's like we loved all that, and we still do. I mean,
yeah.
They're great, and there was a real work ethic, and different. And I'm not, what I'm saying.
Yeah.
You got to play a lot of shows to know who you were and how good you were.
Yeah.
As a band, and it's difficult to just put bands together and imagine they're going to be the great right away.
Yeah.
You got to get a chemistry, and I think that thing that the album, the House of Blues, they just had the thing in New York, the Twin Towers, and people asked how devastating was it. It was, but it wasn't like, if I lived in New York, it would have been more devastating. But in California, we were away from it, but also we hadn't played in years. So it was the first Knack show in years, so it wasn't as sad as it could have been. And I think that album really is pretty cool. And it got a lot of energy. And I think the audience was a lot. I knew somebody who was there, and he said it was much crazier there, not from the mix they had off the board. And we sold out as well. So it was really cool.
Yeah, that's what I've noticed about the mix on the album, because I love the album, but the crowd sounds a bit muted. And that's one thing I probably would have, if on a wish list, just ramp up the crowd, because I could imagine it would have been your typical exuberant Knack show, with the audience going gaga.
It's one of the greatest live albums in rock and roll history, is the Who Live at Leeds. And when they talked about mixing it, they had no mic in the crowd. So they were at the gymnasium. I call it gymnasium. Like you hear this, those guys, man, that album, and I saw him play like a bunch of times. And I'm telling you, man, John Entwistle, man, just, and I love the group and I love the music and seeing them live. That album still is insane when you hear it,
It's one of the greats. But no, this album's not too shabby at all.
I love it. And I'm
all
glad,
our viewers, you got to
I'm
do
glad
yourself a favor and pick it up,
Yeah.
I do. I've given all my copies away already.
Yeah.
People want it.
I think Record Store Day has a limited run, but hopefully, maybe it'll.
Oh, we got the CDs out and it's on streaming.
Yeah,
too.
absolutely.
So I'm happy and it's doing well. And, any chance I get, I try to, do my job and sell it. And
yeah.
Randy would certainly want me to. And that's why I'm doing all these interviews.
Absolutely.
I like Sharon.
Come down to Australia again, Prescott. I mean,
I
don't think we've never seen I don't think we've had the pleasure of having Missing Persons. So.
Well, I'd love to. She doesn't
Get
fly.
Dale down there.
She's got vertigo. Hey, I got a question for you. Also, when I did the Countdown show, right? There was a very famous actress, singer, right? You know what I'm talking about?
No.
Young girl.
I've read an interview that you've recently done with Bernard Zool from Australia.
Go ahead.
Sally
Boyden.
Boyden. Yeah.
I wanted to bring her up.
Yeah.
She remembered that she was on the show with us.
Yeah.
And because I had jammed with Sally, wrote some songs with her. She's fabulous.
Yeah.
I had no idea she was Sally Boyden. So that's why when I found out, that's why I mentioned it, because it's like, wow, Sally is like 16 and she's seeing us and she's like this thing and, this big actress.
Yeah.
That's great too. And also I had met Carrie Dunderdale. He mentioned it. I think he looked her up. I think she ended up in Miss Universe. I think she was Miss Sydney or Miss somebody, but I never forget that. She was great. I almost fell in love with her, but I couldn't stay. So there you go. And I loved playing in Sydney too. That was terrific, by the way. I like Melbourne, but Sydney I had a great time there, by the way.
Yeah, absolutely. Played the Hordern Pavilion in Sydney. I was too young to go, of course, but if I was in a time machine, I definitely would have liked to have seen you.
Yeah, and Mike's parents saw us too, I forget where, I know Mike's from Brisbane, but they came to see us somewhere. It was wonderful. I mean, again, I had a wonderful time and I certainly will go back, but I enjoyed, I didn't see much. I certainly wouldn't go back to New Zealand because that's like way out there, but we had a good time there too. But Bombay, we played the Bombay Club in Melbourne too.
Right.
And that was great, but it was a really fun time. And again, I'm glad I have memories of it. But Sydney was great. It was like LA, because of the climate and everything, but it's pretty cool.
Yeah.
And,
well, you've done a few interviews with a couple of Aussie journalists. Look,
it's crazy,
I think there's so much joy and love for the Knack in Australia, especially in the indie rock scene. And I think your band, it's the band that keeps on giving because there's just a new generation that's just tapping into the Knack, and it's wonderful,
Well, that to me gives me a sense of not my own judgment or summary of who and what we were. It keeps surprising me, and that's fantastic. Sometimes I get a little overcritical, but then again, talking to you guys, so we were relevant, still are relevant, and immensely talented. And I'm grateful again to be part of what we were, and to play together for that many years. It's no small feat either. By the way,
absolutely. Any final questions, Grant?
Well, I know we covered every record.
Yeah.
Except for Normal is the Next Guy. And I just can you just touch on that record? Is that, I don't know if that's one of your favorite records. I think it's a great record, but I think it's kind of overlooked after how Zoom went. It's kind of
Zoom is over. Zoom is overlooked, man. I talk to people that have no idea. They've never heard that album. When I taste Terry Bozzio played, I go, really? I didn't know that. I get that a lot.
All I know is I bought it as soon as it came out.
Well, you're cool, man. You're a good fan.
Well, I'm doing what I can.
It's Series fun with Don Was. A lot of people still don't know about it. But that album was kind of a combination. Doug, we had broken up. Doug was written songs for somebody else. Didn't do that album. It's somebody's cousin, or I don't know what the hell it was. Mm-hmm. So we had gotten together, did some new songs. A couple of songs were carryovers from earlier writings like that Doug had done.
One Day at a Time.
7 Days in Heaven, yeah, which is not nearly as good as the other version, of course. One day, a song, 7 Days in Heaven, we had done prior to that album as part of a set we did years before. We're trying to get a new record deal. The Girls was something we did a little bit, never really worked earlier on. It's Not Me is a great song. I love playing it. Place of My Own, World of My Own is a really cool song. I should have been singing. And Normal is the Next Guy, Jones playing on it. It's like a rap song, right? Normal is the Next Guy. Doug's rapping on it, by the way. And it's a really clever lyric.
It is 2001.
Yeah, and it's a real cool lyric, I thought. A lot of people never heard that song. And I think it's really cool to have a rap. Yeah, actually, we did it on I Want Love, and that song, River of Sighs, on Serious Fun is a rap song. Doug is rapping. But they don't call it, he's just talking over the music. That's a damn good lyric, by the way. But yeah, so Normal is the Next Guy. I like 4 or 5 songs. And I love playing It's Not Me. That's on the live album. Huh?
I mean, it's no Zoom. I think Zoom's almost up there with the first album.
Yeah, they're all,
but it's different.
They're all unique unto themselves. That's all. And also 7 Days in Heaven was a pretty interesting song. It's one of those songs where the chorus is mentioned 98 times, but that's cool. I counted Band on the Run. I think he said 125 times in the song. It just repeats and repeats and repeats and repeats, you know. But yeah, that 7 Days in Heaven goes. But some of those songs are really good.
I like that record.
Zoom is very consistent songwriting wise, and you know, all the albums are. But I think this was a different time and a different drummer, and we all contributed differently. So I'm glad we did that album, by the way.
Yeah.
You know, and please find that tape with Terry, please.
Well,
we'll see what we can do.
We'll put this out to the viewers. Prescott, thank you very much for your time.
It's a
This has
pleasure.
just been probably one of the funnest 2 hours of my life, because I'm a huge Knack fan. I know Grant Arthur is as well.
I'm a big Knack fan.
No, I'm glad you gave me the time to at least.
Yeah, absolutely.
Honestly,
We just sort of, I wrote an email to your agent and I thought, what the hell, give it a crack. And here we are now. It's just been such a fun 2 hours chatting.
Well, really quick, Randy's wonderful. He always tells Prescott, look, just make your answers quick. You only have 30, 40 minutes.
No.
Okay. But I'll always ask them, because I started saying you want to know like something real. I mean, not just, the second album wasn't that good. Next, you know, I'm trying to.
No.
Well, Peter and I are very hardcore, so it's
Yeah.
hard for us to let you go. So
Well, you guys are great. And the fact that you were at that show blows my mind. You have no idea. You
I'll
actually,
never forget it.
somebody's giving me a history lesson. Thank you again. I loved it. And thank you for the interview. And I do hope I can go to Australia in one form or another.
Yeah, look, Terry, come down to Australia, please.
I love it.
Bring this guy down. Yeah.
And I'll tell Dale, I'll get in touch with Sally too. She's living in London right now, but I'll tell her that I've had the good pleasure of meeting you guys and talking about her as well.
Absolutely.
Excellent.
All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good night.